Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to a long-awaited episode 25 of the Rings of Power Wrap-Up.
Everyone, it's time to pull up a bench here in the common room. I'm James Tauber, the Sage of the South.
And I'm Sarah Brown, Shield Maiden of Rohan. We're both here with the Man of the West, Alan Sisto.
And tonight we're going to be providing our end-of-season report card for the first season of The Rings of Power.
Is it going to be an A+? Is it going to be a solid B? Or, oh boy, is it going to be that dreaded C-? Let's see.
We will find out.
Yeah. So a quick welcome for those of you joining us for the first time. Here at the Rings of Power Wrap-Up, we talk about the plot, the characters, and the lore behind Amazon's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
We also dive into some of Tolkien's biggest themes: mortality, free will, fellowship, grade point averages, and do our fair share of speculating when there are episodes to speculate on.
We hope you'll learn something new about Middle-earth every time you listen, and with a few laughs in the process. We're glad you've joined us.
And we hope you'll be glad you joined as well. Now, before we talk about this week's episode, we want to remind you that if you want some company as you read the books that Tolkien wrote, you should check out Alan's original show, The Prancing Pony Podcast.
For almost 7 years and 6 million downloads, Alan and his co-host Sean Marchese walked their way through Tolkien's Legendarium, from the Silmarillion to the Hobbit, and this season the podcast is working its way through The Return of the King.
Indeed it is. And this season I'm actually co-hosting episodes with a real all-star lineup of folks from the Tolkien community. Humbly, I'd like to think there's no better companion for your extended trip through Middle-earth than the Prancing Pony Podcast.
And it really has been an all-star lineup, particularly that guy you've had on recently, Alan.
Oh, that James Tuber, right? James Potato Guy.
With the funny
That's
voice,
the
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
That's
one.
the one. Before we get into this week's release, do we have any clarifications to make from our last episode?
I suppose we do, really. Yeah. It's fairly obvious by now. After our chat with Ramsey Avery, we told you all that our next episode, this one, was going to be a conversation with Pharazôn himself, Tristan Gravel, and it was supposed to release last week. Unfortunately, that fell through. The chat hasn't yet taken place, so we are moving ahead with our season-end report card for now, but we are looking forward to bringing you a talk with Tristan just as soon as we can get that rescheduled.
And we might have one or two other surprises in the works, but we've now learned our lesson not to say anything until we've actually recorded those conversations.
Gee, you think?
Yeah, by now you'd think we'd learn. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's jump in and give our grades for the first season. We'll break it down into different categories and just talk our way through these as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And in coming weeks, we'll do deep dives into individual storylines to get more specific.
Right.
For now, though, we'll be talking about how the entirety of Season 1 fared in several categories, including visuals, such as costume sets and practical effects, as well as CG, acting, and music and sound.
That's right. And then we'll get into the writing, everything from the development of the plot to character dialogue, and finally, the important question of whether the folks at Amazon have successfully managed to convey the core of the original of Tolkien's works. This isn't a test of lore fidelity. I mean, any adaptation is going to have to take liberties, especially when there's not a ton of source material in the first place. But instead, it's a question of whether they've captured the key themes of Tolkien's Middle-earth in the Second Age. But for now, let's go ahead and start with the visuals. I don't know, just overall, I definitely want to dive into the individual set design, but any sort of overall arching thoughts on the way that they visually presented Middle-earth? What are your takeaways?
I think for me, this was probably the strongest thing of all. I just thought visually, from the point of view of all aspects of that, the cinematography, the costume design, the sets and everything were the standout for me across the board. I don't think I could fault the visuals at all. And we can get into specifics, but,
Sure.
but I certainly thought the visuals were a really, really strong part of the whole show.
Yeah, I have to agree with James. Yeah. The visuals really pulled me into the world that they were creating, and I absolutely loved things like the set design for places like Númenor for Khazad-dûm, and oh my goodness, I just thought they were wonderful. So as far as visuals are concerned, I think they conveyed Middle-earth to me beautifully and in wonderfully intricate detail as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think, and we'll get into that as we talk about maybe individual sets or costumes and things, but I'm with you on this. This is not a surprise. I think it is definitely the strongest suit for the show. I very rarely found myself kind of pulled out of the show as a result of the visuals. The only example I can think of is the Chihuahua org that sort of threw me a little bit. I mean, outside of that, the visuals definitely pulled me in. And if anything ever took me out, it was other stuff. It was things like either plot lines or dialogue, but the visuals were consistently top notch across the board. Like you said, costumes, set design, cinematography, just the way, even color temperature, and the way they would film a particular scene where it was warmer versus light versus cooler, and you could catch that difference in just the color tones, the overall palette that they would use. Definitely their strongest suit.
Yeah, I mean, just on that point, I don't want to dive too deeply into it.
No, we should.
It was really unusual, I think, for a television show, a particularly fantasy television show, at this point in film and television history, to have, I think, the richness of color.
Yes.
That it did. There's been this whole trend to really desaturate, to have this,
grime it up.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact they didn't do that. There were so many wonderful blues and greens and oranges and
the golds and Lindon, and
we'll get to specific scenes, I'm sure, but that was certainly one of my favorite things. Was there were so many scenes that really felt like they were painting with light, is an expression that sometimes gets used of cinematography. Gorgeous shots that are beautiful standalone, right? You could take stills from so many scenes and they would just be gorgeous photographs to look at. They would be, just wonderful.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Well, let's talk about some of those specifics, right? I think, and this may not come as a surprise to anybody, my favorite, and sorry, you mentioned it by name, my favorite of the sets was Númenor. So let's talk a little bit about set design of Númenor. What were some of the things that stood out to you, that made it feel right? What are some of your thoughts? Sarah, I'll have you start on this one.
So the richness of the colors and the warmth and the overall feeling of the glow of sunshine over all of it. I mean, I was hunting on my computer to find how I could get a package holiday to Numenor because, before it sinks.
I was going to say, not too late in the second age.
Not too late.
That's right.
But I mean...
Off season there is a real bummer.
Yeah, good point. But I mean, it just looked like the kind of place that I wanted to be there. I wanted to walk those streets. I could actually hear the hum of all the people around and feel the warmth of the sunshine and smell the blossom in the air. I mean, if you've read any of the stuff that is very specifically about Númenor, like the Akallabeth, or the stuff that's in the Unfinished Tales, and how Tolkien describes the way that Númenor is. And one of the things he talks about is that on the air is this smell of blossom that comes from the 7 great tree types that were brought to Númenor by the Valar to help to make Númenor this glorious land of gift. And I could actually almost scent that on the air because it just felt like all of my senses were being engaged as the characters were walking through the streets. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you don't get the feeling that things are not all well in Númenor, but as a place, it's glorious still. It's just gorgeous. And I love the fact as well that when you look at the murals on the walls, they've clearly been there for hundreds and hundreds of years.
That's exactly what my thing was. It was the ancientry, the history of this place. It felt like a place that's been around. I love that. Good catch.
So it's brilliant because it's not then looking like, oh, yes, we've just painted these murals and don't they look fantastic? Everywhere looks like it's been around there for a very long time. So you know that it's not like Númenor at its newest.
Right.
It's Númenor that has really lived in itself, if you like. And I just love those little touches that made me feel like I wanted to walk those streets in Galadriel's dress, which wouldn't fit me, but that doesn't matter.
See, and I would want to walk in Elendil's armor, so I guess, we're even.
Not Galadriel's dress?
No, I don't think that would fit me very well at all.
It's just the wrong color.
It really is. Yeah, it's just not the right color for my skin tone, no.
Oh, fair enough.
I remember Ramsey Avery talking a little bit about, building Númenor visually and how, you mentioned the idea that it's not just new. He talked about, if I recall correctly, architecture changing. So if you look closely, you'll see buildings that are clearly older in design and that design has changed over time in such a way that you can imagine it changing into what we see in Minas Tirith. That there's a progress, a thread of growth that you can see in the way this city is built. It's really fantastic details.
Yeah, this is one of the things I was going to say. I think the set design is one of those areas that adds to the rewatchability of the show.
Yes.
One of the things I'm going to be looking at as I go back and watch episodes is taking in more of that detail. And specifically with Númenor, as you mentioned, Alan, there's multiple layers going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this sort of sense that originally there was a lot more elvish influence.
Yes.
But that over time that changed. And you can see, looking at the sets, those different layers, the things that maybe were there originally that had been allowed to fall into decay, changes in these architectural styles as they're moving more and more towards sort of the human side of things rather than the elvish. And as you mentioned, ultimately foreshadowing the direction that the architecture will go in something like Minas Tirith. But yeah, I mean, I think the richness and the layering of the architecture in Númenor was just wonderful.
Really was. All right, well, let's each talk about maybe one particular area. James, I'd like to have you talk a little bit about some of the elvish architecture, maybe or I say architecture, but really all the sets in Lindon and Eregion.
Yeah, I mean, I loved seeing Eregion, first of all. I wish we'd seen more of it close up.
I know, it was
wonderful...
so like, oh, there's Eregion, it's built. Oh, it's gone now. We don't see it anymore, yeah.
And it's interesting because I think Eregion gives us a nice comparison to Númenor in seeing what a purely elvish architecture would look like.
Yeah, more towers and things, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And just the elegance of it and everything, delicate nature of it. But yeah, I wish we'd seen more close-up stuff of Eregion because those aerial shots were just phenomenal. And Lindon was interesting because we don't actually see much of Lindon in terms of architecture. Almost all of the stuff is outdoors. But I love the integration into the forest in Lindon. Yeah. Whether it was just sort of the scenes with the main tree, where they're sort of all out on that platform for various ceremonies, or that gorgeous forest scene with the statues. It was just that beautiful integration into nature that that Tolkien does so well. In even Lord of the Rings, he talks about certain locations being so much more integrated into nature. I loved seeing that aspect of Lindon.
Yeah, that was pretty stunning. Sarah, you want to talk a little bit about Southlands maybe before it became Mordor?
Oh, right. So the Southlands or Before-Dor. Yeah. So again, like most of these different areas, each one has its own kind of color schemes, if you like. And a lot of the Southlands, you see more black, more gray, more brown, all those sorts of colors in the Southlands. But when we're first meeting the Southlands, so this is before it turns into Mordor, it does contrast beautifully with the green. There is a really lush green there. So we get the sense of it being a series of settlements. It's very agricultural. It's kind of primitive, especially when you compare it to what the elves have in Lindon and Eregion. But it looks pretty settled. And I really... you can see how there are communities built there. And it does give you a really important sense that the people there are very settled, very rooted in that area. And I think that's really important. And then you get these tiny, tiny little details that contrast with the overarching browns and greys and blacks, such as, for example, Bronwyn's little splash of blue in her costume, which I think is really interesting because you mostly see blue in Númenor.
Right.
And so maybe there's kind of a sense of elevating Bronwyn a little by giving her these extra colours, because the vast majority of the people of the Southlands wear very plain clothing that is brown or black or grey to go with all the other kind of colours that you see around you.
Sort of drab. Yeah,
exactly. So there's no sense of those splashes of color that that maybe seem probably as a luxury in a life like that, unlike in Númenor, where it's so glorious and everybody wears these beautiful colors, because you can do that when you don't have to worry about where your next dinner is coming from.
That is true. Yeah.
But in the Southlands, it's very different. So when you see these little touches of color, like you do in Bronwyn's costume, then it really catches the eye. So like with a lot of these places, it's looking for those little bits that tell you that something or somebody is important or different because they're using color differently for them.
That's a good key. Absolutely. I'm going to talk a little bit about Khazad-dûm. I drew the long straw on this one. You guys drew the short straws and letting me talk about Khazad-dûm. I have to say, I had been looking forward to seeing this dwarven realm ever since we heard that they were going to be shooting stuff in this location. I mean, setting stuff in this place. Absolutely did not let me down. Fantastic scenery. To see it alive, to see light coming through holes and shafts of light coming down, to see agriculture in the caves, to see them tilling earth and growing things was phenomenal. Scale, both vertically and just the size of it going in all directions, was overwhelming and impressive and grand and exactly what you'd expect from the dwarven culture. I also love the tiny details when we got into Durin and Disa's home in that wonderful scene with Elrond, getting to see everything from the table and the chairs to the lamps to the decorative pieces, including the little helmets that the kids were running around wearing. There was so much detail and it all felt right. Even the placement of the elvish tree in a location in that home that was receiving natural light felt absolutely right. It's for Durin's home, obviously, not necessarily for any of the other dwarves, given their relationship with the elves. But everything from the color schemes, all the browns and natural stony colors, golds and silvers and various shades of grays. And yet there were, enough colors to make it pop, and just the details in there. I mean, I'm thinking primarily set design, but then you could also talk about costuming. And I'm thinking back to that scene with the rock battle between Durin and Elrond, where we get a really good shot of a whole lot of other dwarves, and we get to see how they dress, how they wear their facial hair, how they come together visually as a people. And I thought that was something that they did really consistently and consistently well in Khazad-dûm. And I'm really excited to see more. I hope that the Balrog doesn't destroy it all in season 2.
Oh, no.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Well, before we move on to acting, any last words on some of the other things? I mean, we didn't really talk about Rivanion and the Harfoot's journey. We didn't talk about Forodwaith, Valinor. Just little bits and pieces on any of that?
I mean, I loved seeing Forodwaith.
Mm-hmm.
Both the sort of just the icy snow-capped mountains, but also the fortress that they ultimately discover. It was a wonderful contrast with all the other stuff that we've talked about. It was just
all
really
sharp
nice
and edgy and black.
Yeah. And a perfect contrast, of course, with Valinor, because when you look at the scenes where they're showing you Valinor, I mean, I don't know my camera techniques or anything, but it always seemed to be slightly soft focus, just a little bit.
Yeah.
To provide that idea of everything being perfect and gentle and calm and wonderful. And then you get Forodwaith and it's hard and jagged and painful, and really wonderful juxtaposition there of those two.
Yeah, agreed.
Definitely agreed. Any one single highlight, like your visual highlight? Let's say it's the vision of the wave that Tarmiriel has, or maybe it's the volcano erupting. What was your visual highlight of the season?
Well, mine was one that actually was released really early on, but we didn't know who it was, with the elven figure in the white cloak facing Tirion upon Tuna.
Yeah.
And you can see the trees in the background.
The light of the 2 trees. Yeah.
It's still stunning, even though you know now who that was, and there was so much speculation, which was fun, but that is still an absolutely beautiful shot.
Yeah.
And to see the 2 trees in the background was just breathtaking. I loved that.
Gave me chills. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was amazing, and still has an effect on me as well. One of the things for me was was that initial wide shot of Khazad-dûm,
Yeah.
where you just really see the scale of it. And as you talked about, Alan, seeing it alive, seeing it occupied, seeing it lived in by somebody other than orcs was amazing. That was another jaw-dropping moment for me, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually would concur with both of yours. I'm not sure which one I would pick as the highlight, but it would almost certainly be one of those. I might have to lean towards the two trees just because of my first stage, fixation. Overall visual low light, I'm going to have to say the Chihuahua. If that was the only one I can think of, really.
Yeah, and to me, that was just about the movement. There was
something unnatural or janky about it.
A point at which it almost felt like it was stop motion animation to me.
Yeah, little Harryhausen.
Yeah, it's the only time I was taken out of the show because of something visual, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't want to be sniggering at the Chihuahua when it was a moment of great peril.
Yeah, great peril and great threat. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, but to contrast with that, because that is the only visual moment I can think of where I was a little bit, it's a visual moment, but it's also a sound moment. And this is the moment of the series for me, where we have that moment of escape from the orcs through the forest, coming out into the field, and the sun is rising and the orcs can't follow, and you get this glorious rise of sound behind it, and then the camera sweeps off and goes off towards the mountains, and then we sink down and we see Disa singing. My goodness.
Yeah, that might have been the greatest transition.
That moment still raises the hair on the back of my neck. It is 100%. Absolute perfection.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up in the context of
sound and
music because that was just this wonderful. What I loved about that is that initially you think that it's non-diegetic, right? You think it's just part of the score.
Yep.
This glorious sound to accompany the sun rising, as you mentioned,
right?
And then when you realize, no, it's Disa singing, and we cut to her. I agree.
Changed everything.
That was the audio highlight for me, for sure. And just the way the whole way that worked. We'll talk about it more. When we
Definitely, we will talk about that more. For now, though, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about everything else: acting, music, sound, and writing.
We're about to jump back into talking about this season's report card, but we want to remind you that when you finish listening, the talk continues all night long at the Rings of Power wrap-up.
We have an amazing community of listeners, and they really do keep the conversation going. From the Rings of Power group on Facebook, our Twitter feed, our Reddit community, and more.
Now on Facebook, look for Rings Wrap-Up. Be sure to follow the page so that you get our episode releases and posts, but also join our group for some great discussions on the show and on each of our episodes.
If you're on Reddit, look us up at r/ringswrapup and follow us on Twitter and Instagram where we're at ringswrapup.
And a quick favour to ask, if you like the show, please help us out by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and recommend us to your friends.
Indeed, and thank you for that. So let's go ahead and get back in. We're going to go ahead and talk about the casting and acting. Boy, there's a lot here. We could end up spending another hour if we do. So let's sort of take turns. Sarah, why don't you start us off with Morvith Clark as Galadriel? Talk to us a little bit about your thoughts there.
I loved Morvith Clark. I'm putting that out there. I really did. I thought that she had some moments where you could see her drawing on the dignity of the elves. You could also see that this is not Third Age Galadriel.
No,
she is playing her as still that fiery, angry, revengeful woman who is still looking for who she is and her place in Middle-earth at this point in time. And I could see that in the way that she was playing Galadriel. I could actually see that coming through. So her moment for me, though, her absolute pinnacle moment was the moment on the boat with Halbrand that we then knew was Sauron, that last bit where I could just see the way in which she was playing off him, and considering that link that they had made between the pair of them throughout the whole season. I thought that was really well played on her part. So yeah, she was given a few slightly interestingly dodgy storylines to work with on occasions.
That's fair. We'll get to those.
But I honestly, I thought that she embodied who Galadriel is really well.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Can I just add, while we're talking about Morveth, there are a couple of moments where they really made use of directly looking at camera, which is such a risky thing to do. It can fail very, very dramatically when we're not in the hands of a wonderful actor. And so one of the times was when she's on the boat to Valinor, and she makes her decision, and that choice to make her look directly at us, the audience, when she makes that decision was chilling. I still think about her like she was looking to me saying, "Shall I do this, James?" It was an incredible moment. The other thing, of course, is when she realizes who Halbrand is. Just incredible acting. I don't think many actors could pull off that kind of closeness of the filming and the direct looking down the barrel of the lens kind of thing.
That thing couldn't have been more than 6 inches from her face when she's shooting that scene.
Right.
That was incredible.
Yeah, and to continue with that, I think her power is in those quiet moments. So not those moments where she's on full on action, where she's doing something and, everything is all out there. It's those moments that are the quieter moments where you can really see the quality of her acting.
Yeah, I would concur 100%. I really don't have anything else to add because you both have nailed exactly what I would say about her. We're going to try to stick to one person per character. And James, you're next with Charlie Vickers as Halbrand.
Yeah, I mean, again, this was a wonderful performance,
wasn't it?
Particularly, I want to draw again on the moment of the revelation that he is Sauron. The transformation in his face and in his body. It's those moments that make you realize what good acting is.
Exactly.
Right? Where he just the whole way his posture changed, the look on his face. When you can make when an actor can transform themselves to being likable, to being the personification of evil just by changing the way that they, position their face and their eyes. It was incredible. So again, I just think a remarkable performance. I mean, I loved the whole way through. There was the sort of all concerns that he was kind of going to be an Aragorn type figure, reluctant king kind of thing, which obviously we don't need to worry about anymore.
Aquagorn, yes.
But I mean, just he got some wonderful lines as well. It was, I think, a wonderful performance from Charlie.
I agree, and it is sometimes hard to tease out the writing and the dialogue the character gets to say versus the actor's delivery of those lines.
Yes.
So far, I think you've both done a really good job of focusing on the acting, and that's what I'm trying to do here. It is challenging because oftentimes we're going to look at a character and judge them partially on what they said, but they're not the ones who wrote that. So we'll discuss writing later. And I think when we focus on how they perform visually, how they're able to project emotion, project how they're feeling, and give us a sense of that. And both of them did fantastic jobs in that. I agree. With Charlie Vickers, I think back to some of his moments on Númenor and that confrontation with those people where you could tell he didn't want to kind of let loose. He didn't want to go there. And then he went there. And, it was just, you really feel that tension mounting until he snapped.
Yes.
I thought he did a fantastic job there as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to touch on Robert Aramayo, Elrond, the young Elrond. He did, I think the first thing that comes to my mind are those moments that he had with Galadriel that were close moments, the moment in the forest, or that moment with the tapestries, and she's talking about having been in Valinor. But I have to say, where he really shone was in his conversations with Durin the Fourth, with Owain and Arthur.
Absolutely.
And I got such a sensation of deep and abiding friendship and genuine brotherly love from him towards towards Durin, it just warmed my heart to hear him. I know part of this is writing, but I'm thinking about the emotional conveyance when he's conveying to Durin the importance of maintaining the relationship with his father. And he's talking about his own father, Eärendil.
Yes.
And even now it almost brings tears to my eyes
me
because
too.
it's such a moment.
Yes, it
and
is.
He's able to convey the gravity of that moment, right? I mean, yeah, we all understand that. We are so steeped in the lore that it does bring tears to our eyes to think about the story of Eärendil and then Elrond essentially losing his father to the heavens, quite literally. But he does such a phenomenal job of conveying that on the screen. It didn't even once feel unnatural or feel forced or feel stilted. He just opened up that relationship with Durin to all of us, and we got to take part in that friendship. And it was primarily through his acting as well as through that of Owain Arthur, who, Sarah, I'm going to ask you to touch on his performance.
Well, these two, they are a beautiful bromance, aren't they?
They are.
I mean, the chemistry between the two is absolute perfection because what I loved about Owain Arthur, and I think he really embodied Durin so well, I love the way he played off the other characters that are important in his story. So you've got his father, you've got his wife Disa, and then you've got Elrond. So it's really the way in which we're going to respond to Durin is the way in which he's playing off those three people.
True.
And that, because it's so different how he is with those three different people, that gives us the rounded sense of who Durin is and all of the tensions that exist within his personality. So you've got this difficult relationship with his father, and you see that playing out, and you can actually see his body language change when he's talking to his father. He is stiffer, he is more upright, he's more kind of rigid in his body language. You can see the tension, and he's holding it in his shoulders and his neck, and the way he's speaking, it is different. And then when he's talking to Disa, it's that comfortable familiarity, but there's a humor there as well.
Yes.
The relationship between the two of them is just gorgeous. And, James, I assume, is going to talk about Disa, who is my queen and my queen forever.
That's why I had to give her to him, because it was just going to be nothing but a praise fest. Yeah,
I know. And that's fair. That's absolutely fair. But I thought Owain Arthur did a fantastic job with Durin, because there are moments with Durin where there's humor.
Yes.
But we're not laughing at him. We're laughing with him. And the ways in which the dwarves have been portrayed in the past, and I'm pointing to you, Peter Jackson, is they have often been figures of fun. Not that we're laughing with them, but we're kind of laughing at them in the way in which they are being played. So I think to get the humor right and to have us enjoying that humor with Durin is really subtle and important. And that's something that I think Owain Arthur managed to get.
Yeah, he nailed it. No doubt about it. He nailed it.
Yeah, the other thing I would say about Owain Arthur is another actor that was just remarkable in the use of his eyes. And in his case, doubly so, because he had all the prosthetics on.
The prosthetics,
Right.
making it so hard to,
But I remember that the elevator scene with Elrond and just the hurt that he was conveying just in his eyes.
It was palpable.
Was incredible.
It made you feel awkward for Elrond, I mean, you're getting called on the carpet, man, and he's right.
Yes, you deserve that. Absolutely.
I have to quickly say about Robert Aramayo, that line about Elrond being as kind as summer. I think his portrayal of that was perfect.
I agree.
It just the kindness that he brought to the role was just wonderful to see.
He brings,
it's
and
beautiful.
this is on purpose, I suspect. He brings a very human aspect to an elf.
Yes,
he's more approachable.
Warm.
He's more warm and welcoming, and that's not a surprise, because he's, of course, half human. And so, as Gil-galad constantly reminds him, but it's definitely something that, as an actor, Robert pulls off immensely well. And gives us that sense of welcome. James, tell us a little bit about what you thought of Sophia Nomvete or Disa. My goodness.
Wow. I mean,
yeah. Scene
talk
stealer,
about
huh?
I was going to say, talk about a scene stealer. Exactly.
Mhm.
Her performance was phenomenal. And
Wasn't it?
it's, I mean, probably my favorite of the non-canonical, if we want to use that term,
Yeah.
characters. She just brought so much, I can't even think of the right words, strength, depth. There was just so much there.
Yeah,
I
there
loved, Sarah's already mentioned this, the relationship between Durin and Disa was just wonderful. Just seeing that partnership that I think is probably going to be an important plot point moving
I'm
forward.
sure it will.
Just sort of her role. Just what a fascinating character, and so larger than life. And so Sophia just poured so much into that role. You couldn't help but fall in love with her. I mean, it was just, I thought it was an incredible performance.
Those two are like marriage goals, right?
Yes,
Yeah, seriously.
absolutely. And of course, I mean, the singing as well.
Oh, her
What an
voice.
unbelievable
What pipes, huh?
voice.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I am unashamedly fangirl flailing over here.
I get it. James, you were struggling for words, trying to figure out what to apply.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like intensity or just
Yeah.
depth and passion is a word that comes to mind, right?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
She
yes.
is a absolutely passionate person.
Yeah.
She feels deeply about everything.
She is
has
going to
an
be a
opinion on
force to
everything.
be reckoned
Yes,
with.
she is a force of nature for sure.
Oh, boy.
No
Yes.
doubt.
Disa, otherwise known as Lady Macbeth. Watch out.
Yeah, watch out. I'd say watch out during the third.
Not just down mountain, but
yes.
all the mountains. Yes.
Yeah, all the
yeah.
mountains. That is
Yeah,
right.
you might want to have your soup tested by somebody else before you eat it. Because damn.
That's a fair point. And she's got something. Wow. Well, that leaves me with the next one. Lloyd Owen as Elendil, or as I like to call him, Alendil.
You wish.
Yeah.
I know,
wish,
don't I
Alan.
wish? Yeah, I wish I had that much hair.
It's a wig.
I know.
Yeah, but it's very pretty.
It is. It is. Lloyd, it's funny. I think part of if I had any criticism at all of the character, it would be of the character, not the actor. And but the more I think about it, the more I realize it's because just like with Galadriel, we're seeing on a smaller scale arc, we're seeing an early Elendil. We're seeing the Elendil who's not yet the king of, Gondor and Arnor. We're seeing he's still not a young man, but we're seeing the man who's going to turn into that. And I think we see that progression in him. Obviously we see him first as sort of a father and as a military leader. I admit that storyline wise, it doesn't make any sense that he's where he is. And we can get to that, in terms of, if Pharazôn doesn't trust him because he's of a particular line, why is he, wielding this much power in the court? Okay, fine. But as an actor, he conveys a number of things I think really, really well. The first thing that comes to my mind is his role as a dad with Isildur and Eärien, the conversations that he has with them. I really felt myself agreeing with him and understanding as a father kind of the frustration that you might feel with your kids, a little bit of like, I can't understand why you're not getting this point. I've been teaching you this for years. And he really got that across in his performance. But I think for me, it was the way he conveyed that, and he had to do it quietly, right? He had to do it sort of under the radar, that love and admiration for elves that we could see in his face whenever he spoke to Galadriel. And for me, I think the moment that was one of his highlights was that moment in Númenor as they were getting ready to ship Galadriel out and the leaves from the tree are coming down, and he turns and makes eye contact with Miriel, and the look on his face tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, again, there's so many cases in this show where the amount that's conveyed just by the look in their eyes.
No words at all, just a look.
And that's another great example. You can just see the horror's not the right word, but the sort of the realization that they're doing the wrong thing. We need to stop what's going on right now because this is really important.
This is urgent.
Yeah.
This is,
and conveying all that with just the look he's giving somebody. It was that was wonderful.
I thought he did a fantastic job. It's not going to hurt that I've met most of these people and they're also really, really nice. I've had a number of chats with Lloyd Owen, and he is just one of the coolest guys around. And I would, a small appendage, like one of my fingers on my left hand, perhaps, to have a voice like his. that guy has
That's
got
understandable.
he's got a set of pipes on him, man.
Mhm.
Just that deep, rich baritone voice. Fantastic actor. Enjoyed every moment that he's on screen. And that moment was something that he shared with Miriel, portrayed by Cynthia
Yes.
Adai Robinson. And Sarah, I want you to talk to us about her.
This is a difficult character to play.
Oh,
Particularly
yes.
with the way that they've written it. This is a really difficult character to play because they're clearly having Miriel in this moment as being very caught between two worlds.
Mm-hmm.
You have her father, who we know, Tar Palantir, one of the faithful, and then you have Miriel, who is standing in as monarch at this point, who cannot be outwardly of the faithful because you've got Pharazôn, who is really popular with the people. The king's men are very anti the Valar and the elves. How does she maintain that balance? And I think actually this is really difficult to do because you've got to, as the actor, you've got to show that conflicted duty, if you like,
Mm-hmm.
between the two different sides that you're trying to actually placate, if you like. The one that you may believe in yourself and the other one that is really powerful and can knock you off your throne at any second. And they actually do give her plenty to do. So she's not just the pretty woman on the throne. She actually does have some very important interactions with many of the main characters. And I think she more than holds her own. You can see that although she's presenting Miriel in public as being, very calm and dignified and all that sort of thing, that in actual fact, this is a woman with a real inner strength. And I saw that come through in the way that she was being played.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of space for this character to grow yet. I don't think we've seen all that much of her yet. But what we have seen of her, I think we've seen those little subtleties of differences being played really well by Cynthia.
All right. Well, James, talk to us a little bit about Maxim Baldry or Isildur.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting character because I think, like Galadriel, we've got to remember we're seeing a very, very different
young
version.
A very different version, right?
Exactly. And I think Maxim did a wonderful job of portraying that kind of youthful arrogance. You're still not really sure of what he's wanting to do in life. We see him seemingly very torn by certain things that are happening, maybe with the memory of his mother as well. There's going to be a lot of interesting things, I think, that are going to get explored there. We've already found out that she drowned. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a wonderful performance of a character that we're going to see develop a lot. Of course, assuming he's not dead. At the end
assuming he's
end of
not
season
dead,
1.
that's going to really break the lore. That would be a huge
that
lore
would be a
breaker
problem,
right
wouldn't it? Yeah. But no.
And nobody cut the ring from Sauron's finger, and Sauron continued, and the Third Age was very dark indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not, oh man. Yeah, I'm very interested to see where he goes with it, but I like his look. I like the way he portrays the character. Like you said, sort of a youthful, not just impetuousness, but almost aimlessness. And
it's an aimlessness. I think he hasn't found his purpose yet.
And a little bit of a naivete in terms of his sort of, I'm going to go off to war and I'm going to do a great job. Never mind that I could get killed. He's not even thinking in those ways. He will now, I think. But
Yes.
I think we see that youthful innocence portrayed pretty well. I'm going to talk a little bit about somebody that we were supposed to have on the show last week and that we should hopefully have on the show very soon. A really cool guy, Tristan Gravel as Pharazôn. He's so much nicer than his character, but he does such a phenomenal job, and I'm sure part of it's the beard, in conveying this incredible arrogance and sort of Machiavellian maneuvering and political, backstabbing and planning and coordinating. And he's very long-term thinker. It's funny. He's patient. You can see this. He's patient with his plans, and he doesn't, as an actor, you see him not, I know part of that's the writing. And again, we can talk about how to tease that out, but he portrays this slow burn, long plan thing perfectly well. but then you can see the impatience, like when he's dealing with his son, Kemen. And you sort of see almost an eye roll and this conveyance of, oh, are you done yet? This very condescending, superior sort of intellect. And he clearly is the smartest guy in the room, in every room he's ever in, at least in his own mind. And he carries that off so well. And just with just a hint of crazy, with just a hint of, I'm not that far from really doing flat out crazy evil things, which is good because, as we know, he's eventually going to do some flat out crazy evil things.
Oh, do you know what I just heard in my head then when you were doing that? Britney Spears doing I'm Not That Innocent. And now I've got Tristan Gravel dressed as Britney Spears in my head. Please stop.
Let's make that happen.
Oh, man. Well, now we have another question for Tristan when he comes on the show. Can you sing Britney Spears? That's what we want to know. Oh, that is fantastic. Yeah, I really like his portrayal. And again, he's another one of these guys. And so many of these come from Shakespearean stage backgrounds. I know Lloyd Owen does. I don't know for sure if Tristan does. I believe he's also, classically trained in that regard. But talk about projection and the ability to get a voice out there in a way that is just commanding and super strong presence. Absolutely love the way he carries that.
Doesn't
character.
hurt that the man is really Welsh.
Yes.
I'm very proud.
Yes, we've spoken about Welsh. He's encouraged me to perhaps play rugby for the Welsh side. I keep trying to tell him I'm a little too old for that, I think. Yeah, great guy. Absolutely great guy. I want to hear about one of my favorite new, if you want to call him non-canonical characters, a character I was not thinking that I would look forward to his portrayal so much. Ended up loving him, Arondir, played by Ismael Cruz Cordova. Sarah, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on him.
He's wonderful.
Isn't he?
Absolutely wonderful. I mean, apart from the fact that I did actually get to meet him at the after party from the premiere in London, and he was just so sweet. By the way, the fact that he acts his way out of a really strong accent, because he does have a very strong accent.
He really does. You're right.
Yeah.
And you almost forget about that when you're watching the show. You really do, yeah.
Because it ain't there.
No.
Instead, what you have is this incredibly calm persona. You can see an intensity behind the eyes and a focus that is there. But it's not that he's like blank face or anything like that. It's just that when he feels, you can see that feeling really powering through. So that moment where his commander dies, when he goes over the top, and you can see the grief in the face of Arondir. So what I really like about how Ishmael's playing Arondir is that you've got, again, a light and dark acting. You've got the small and the big. You've got the quiet and the loud. And he just seems to very smoothly go from one to the other. With all of that, he conveys that sense of dignity, that strength, that calmness of age and knowledge and understanding that I expect to see in someone playing an elf.
Yeah, he might be the most elf-like of the elves, really, in a way.
I mean, I know that he is probably a younger elf, but I mean, that still makes him a heck of a lot older than the vast majority of people we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
But I get that sense from him. You feel like behind those eyes, there is an old soul who has seen a lot. And that's coming through in his acting. I just think that's absolutely wonderful. I think he's great. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's easy to see him as, because of the character, is often written as being sort of not one-dimensional, but very detached and sort of focused, like you said. But then those moments of feeling do come through. The tenderness that he shows with Bronwyn, the understanding that he shows with Theo.
Oh, yes, and that's so important.
It is so important.
Yeah.
And, he just conveys that all so well. Like you said, he's very, well, elf-like. I like that. You're right. That wisdom comes through, and in a character who, like you said, I think is playing a younger elf. His love interest is a very interesting character, Bronwyn, the healer here in the Southlands, played by Nazanin Boniadi. James, tell us a little bit about your take on her performance.
Yeah, I mean, talk about somebody that through circumstances just had to learn to be strong and And I think Nazanin just does a beautiful job of conveying that. Somebody that, didn't necessarily expect to have to do what she's had to do, but through circumstance, whether it was, being a single parent initially to, the fighting the orc.
Oh my goodness.
That just amazing intensity scene.
Oh, yeah.
But, and the way that ends with her, putting the head of the orc down and saying, now do you believe me, kind of thing. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, another force to be reckoned with for sure.
Yeah.
And we talked about this at the time, just how wonderful it is to see so many aspects of the story where there is a strong woman doing their thing, right?
Absolutely. And I think we've talked about that, whether it's Morvid or Sophia or Cynthia or now Nazanin. All of these actresses portray this strength of these characters really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a forced way at all. Not it doesn't feel stilted in any way.
But what I think is actually more important is that it's really easy to get caught up in the idea of this strong woman character, as if there's an expectation that if you're going to be a good woman character, you have to be a strong woman character. And we're going to talk about Poppy Proudfellow in a moment.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And there, I think, is a beautiful rendering of a female character who doesn't need to be a strong, powerful woman.
Yep.
Instead, she is who she is and is beautifully played as such.
Exactly.
And that is something that we tend not to get in a lot of stories, is that you're either eye candy or nothing, or you're this strong, powerful, central female. It's almost like women can't be anything else.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sort of reduced to one or the other.
Right. So it becomes a trope rather than a character. And I actually think that we've got more than that.
Yes.
And with Bronwyn, yes, she's strong, but she's also soft, because the relationship between her and Theo is beautiful and gentle and has wonderful moments in it. There's tenderness there. And I want to see that when we talk about well-written female characters, and to move away from this idea of strong female characters, well-written female characters should be allowed to be rounded.
Yes. Just like a well-written male character needs to.
Exactly.
I was going to say, I immediately thought of Elrond. Being another example of something we don't get to see enough.
A man with deep love for friendship for another man. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Kind as summer. Yeah.
It's that camaraderie, and it's almost like a Frodo Sam sort of thing. We've talked about that when we talk about the Jackson films, where you are allowed to have these strong emotions and affection between two men without it being anything different. And I think that's something that we don't get in a lot of male characters, No,
not in enough of them.
No, exactly. So both, male characters are poorly written sometimes, female characters are poorly written sometimes.
Right.
Here we've got a case where, okay, we can talk later more about the writing and the plot specifically about what they have the characters do. But the performance that Nazanin puts in, James, like you talked about, she just does a fantastic job, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about, I think, the only American in the entire cast, Benjamin Walker, who plays Gil-galad. I'm going to try very hard to tease out the writing and plot lines from the acting, because I don't want to disrespect Benjamin Walker. He's who does, I think, a fantastic job playing a character I really don't like. Can I just be blunt about that?
Swishy Gil-galad.
Swishy Gil-galad, maneuvering, scheming, conniving Gil-galad. I don't like his character at all. But he plays him very well.
Yeah.
He's got this wonderful sense of condescension, of superiority, especially in his connections with Elrond, where he comes off as just so superior and smug. You really kind of love to hate him. And it's not what I expected from Gil-galad, but I think Ben does a fantastic job playing that. He's got a physical presence that helps. There's no doubt about it. Gil-galad is, a physically imposing figure, tall, majestic, and he fits the bill in that regard. And he does just a wonderful job there. Talk to us a little bit about Charles Edwards and Celebrimbor. Quite possibly one of the most surprising casting choices, I think, from a lot of people's perspectives. But Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, it was surprising, because let's face it, he could be said to be a little bit older than you would expect to see Celebrimbor, because, as we know, the elves aren't supposed to age quite as much as that. He's supposed to be a contemporary of Galadriel. So, okay, but moving past that, Charles Edwards himself, I think he's portraying Celebrimbor really well because, and again, we can talk about the writing of Celebrimbor on a separate occasion.
And we will.
And we will. I think he's acting his way out of the green moo really well as well.
Not too many people could carry that thing off, that's for sure.
Right. But what we see is, I think he understands who Celebrimbor is at heart. And that is somebody who wants to create things of power and will ignore warning signs and red flags if it gets in the way of him doing what he thinks is important. And in that sense, it's looking back to his ancestor Feanor, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think he is giving us a Celebrimbor who we can see where the danger will come from. We can see how he gets sucked into doing what we know he's going to end up doing. Poor Banner Boy. It's not going to be a happy ending.
No, it won't. Pincushion Celebrimbor, yeah.
Right. But, I think he's doing a lot with a little, can we say?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he does not have a whole lot of dialogue in season 1. But what he does have, he carries off with a strong sense of, like you said, almost obsession with crafting and making things of power. Because when he's talking about anything else, he's fine. But when he starts to talk about those things, you see the passion. You see
he lights
Charles
up.
Edwards' performance. His eyes light up. He gets very intense. He does a really good job, I think, of conveying that obsession on Celebrimbor's part.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we're going to finally get to some Harfoots. We didn't really talk much about Rovanian and the set design. We sort of ran out of time in that section. But let's start talking about the Harfoots. James, will you talk to us a little bit about Markella Kavanaugh's performance as Nori Brandyfoot?
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly the character that's being used as the sort of channel for the inquisitive nature that we might have about what's going on, right? The sort of the character through whose eyes we're seeing a lot of new things. And she just does this lovely, lovely job of that inquisitive nature, I should say.
Yeah.
And just that really wanting a sense of purpose as well, feeling that there's something more that she wants to do with her life, and that going out there in the wide world is part of that. And of course, just her wonderful care for the stranger. At the same time, this sort of, even as things go wrong and, there's this sort of slight fear to it, but she overcomes that. I think a really lovely, lovely portrayal.
I think so as well.
A very fun character.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about Lenny Henry as Sadoc Burrows, who I thought did a fantastic job. Absolutely just nailed, I think, the sense of kind of being the community elder. You really got the feeling like he was used to this. In a way, he was almost too used to it, right? He was very comfortable in this role. You could see a little bit of his sort of, eye rolling with some of the younger characters, like Poppy and Nori. But I thought his moment there in the end, his kind of hero moment was absolutely fantastic, and the look that he shared, we talked before about how sometimes you just convey things with a look. That moment after he's mortally wounded and he looks at the stranger looks at him, and that there's something the stranger could probably do for him, and he just looks him off.
There's an understanding, which becomes so important thematically.
It really, really does.
In terms of everything else about mortality that's going to come up for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry to see him go. I thought he did such a great job. I would have liked to have seen him continue. But, if you're going to go, that's one way to do it. Sarah, talk to us a little bit about Poppy before we wrap up with just a couple of other things.
Okay. Well, I've talked about Poppy a little bit just a few minutes ago, but to talk about how Megan Richards is playing her, I think she's playing her beautifully, really sweetly. This is a super sweet character.
Yeah.
And she's almost the Sam to Nori's Frodo. She's important like that. And I think that, the way in which Megan has played her conveys that sweetness of personality. This is a Harfoot who has gone through so much.
Yes.
Lost all of her family, and yet remains cheerful, but still with a little bit of reserve in there that you can see that, there's something that's not fully out. Perhaps she's protecting a little bit of herself, but I see Megan actually playing that kind of nuance in there as well. And I've met Megan, and she just struck me as such a lovely, sweet person.
Yeah, I was going to say,
and
she's just as kind in real life as Poppy is on the screen.
That's it. But I think she's actually got a character that is more important than you might think when you first meet her.
Absolutely agree, yeah.
But I think that she's playing her really beautifully and bringing that gentle nature to life through her.
And I keep hearing that song in my head because I have that on heavy rotation in my playlist, the Wandering song that she sings. It's just lovely.
Not the Kermit the Frog version that I
Not the Kermit the Frog version, no. All right, so James, continuing on with the Harfoot theme, talk to us a little bit about Daniel Wayman's performance as the Stranger.
Yeah, I mean, what a really interesting role to portray. Quite aside from how people feel about, who it's going to turn out to be.
Setting aside whether he's a wizard or Sauron and what wizard he is and all of that, yeah.
But yeah, having to sort of go into that role and talk about a transformation just within the season. He probably gets the biggest transformation of all. It's also one of those roles where you can almost not recognize Daniel Wayman in the character. Like if you see him interviewed and so on, he's a very, very different person.
Yeah, that is true.
Than the way he's conveying the Stranger, which is probably a good thing. It'd be a bit weird if he was actually like the Stranger in real life.
Yeah, it's true.
Again, just this wonderful transformation that happens, that he's, he has to play this confused, scared character initially, somebody that's having to deal with abilities that he doesn't know how to control.
Right.
Hurting people that he doesn't want to hurt, accidentally. And again, so much portrayal of that in the face, in the eyes and everything, that sort of...
Because he doesn't have the language.
Right.
Yeah, and he's hurting people that he cares about. But then ultimately, of course, when he's realizing who he is, when he's sort of coming out of the fog, again, we get another wonderful example of this sort of change in somebody's face. And of course, he all of a sudden remembers how to speak. And it's going to be really interesting to see. It's going to be a completely new portrayal, I think, in season 2.
It's virtually
he's a different character.
Yeah,
exactly.
Be interesting to see how he develops.
Yeah, I mean, he really had to go, physical for 6 episodes, really, and not rely on his speaking. It was pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other characters to talk about. Theo, Aarion, those really cool cultists or whatever that we decided to call them at the end of the day. Kemen with his terrible haircut, not his fault. But I'm going to mention Adar, Joseph Mall, who did a terrifyingly good job conveying this character. I think the highlight, honestly, has to be that conversation he had with Galadriel as a prisoner. The conveyance of the emotion, of the weight of what he's dealing with and carrying, it's such a new thing for us to even face, to think.
The complexity of it.
The complexity. That's a great way of putting it.
Yes.
I mean, we can still wrestle with this when we get to that idea of the storyline, and we can talk about the whole nature of orcs and all of this, because boy, that is an area that is such a challenge in the Legendarium, if for no other reason than Tolkien continually changed his mind. But I thought that the way that Joseph portrayed Adar's devotion to to who he viewed really as his children was really
amazing.
Incredibly powerful. Very uncomfortable for me, right? I mean, I disagree. The orcs are still evil. I really had a new feeling, and experiencing it through his eyes was really fascinating. I thought he did a great job, and he's one of the ones who's been recast. I think we're going to miss him.
Such a shame.
It really, really is. Best of luck to whoever tries to fill those shoes, of course. Looking forward to it, but that is going to be unfortunate.
He made Adar one of the most compelling characters.
Compelling. That is a great way of putting it. Yes. He made him very compelling.
Just couldn't look away.
No.
When he was on screen.
At any of the times, you're absolutely right. You knew there was just so much magnetism there, so much power there, and obviously so much mystery as well. Kept you kind of glued to the set every time he was on. Well, folks, we are running short, so we're going to wrap up pretty soon. So next time, we're going to finish up our report cards. So we don't have any final grades. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do with that, but we're going to come up with final grades. We're going to talk about music and sound effects, and then we're going to talk the big stuff, plots, dialogue, and core of the original. So we'll talk about that next time, probably in 3 weeks' time, just because the holidays make it a little bit more difficult to record. So come back then. And in the meantime, happy holidays to you. So that does conclude another episode of the Rings of Power Wrap-Up, but be sure to join us again next time when we finish this report card.
Thanks to the team that helps us get this show out there. Our speedy editor, Jordan Runnels, our barleyman, Becca Davis, social media manager, Casey Hilsey, and our website guru, Phil Dean.
And speaking of the website, give us a visit there at ringswrapup.com. We've got show notes, our online storefront, and some outtakes.
You'll also want to take a look at our library page. This show may be about the Amazon adaptation, but the three of us are, first and foremost, fans, if not nerds, of the books. So we've provided links for you to get all the lore. We do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, so thank you in advance.
Indeed. And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your season's grades, highlights, and lowlights to barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want a chance to have your actual voice heard, you can send us audio of you asking your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
But be sure to send the question to Barleyman too. Now, we've been able to rely on Barleyman lately, but we do get a lot of mail, so we'll get you when we can. Your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
And folks, we apologize for the incomplete grade that we're having to give ourselves this particular time around, but we will, I promise you, get you grades next time. In the meantime, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until then,
Namarie, friends.